think it's very important to support the art of cinema because movies are such a powerful storytelling medium. It's the universal language of moving images. And when stories of a culture are told on screen, people can see that many of these stories are universal and that we all share many of the same experiences. And if the film is about an historic event, it can be both educational and emotional. And that allows us to experience events that have helped to shape other countries and their cultures. Cinema is also very accessible. And we live in a global community today that thrives on images and imagery as a means of communicating a message. Therefore, it's very important to both preserve and show historic films as well as current films. I founded the Carmel Institute of Russian Culture and History at American University to help promote greater cultural understanding between the United States and Russia, with a focus in particular on younger generations. And from the beginning, the Institute has had a fundamental focus on film. And these films are not just historical films, but they're movies that capture the essence of Russians as people, showcasing similarities as well as differences, and helping to overcome stereotypical thinking. General Director Karen Shakhnazarov has shared many of Mosfilm's most important works from the beginning of the Institute's history, and I'm very grateful to him for his support. And I'd like to give you two examples of recent film showings that were in the Russian Film Festival that we also showed at the Institute. We were proud to host the U.S. premiere of Anna Karenina, Vronsky's Story, which is an adaptation of the classic Leo Tolstoy novel by Karen Shakhnazarov. And Tolstoy remains one of the most widely read Russian authors in the U.S. and worldwide. Director Karen Shakhnazarov was extremely careful to follow the original text in terms of the relationship between Anna, Vronsky, and Karenin. And it was a gorgeous film, and it showcased the culture of the times. And then recently, we also hosted another U.S. premiere, this time The Important Story of Sobibor. This was done at the Russian Embassy in Washington, D.C. And based on true events, our audience saw for the first time a film that recounts the true story of heroism of the Soviet officers who had been captured and they'd been put in this notorious Nazi concentration camp. They led a revolt which allowed all of the prisoners to escape. And it was an incredibly moving film. It featured remarks by the director and the lead actor of the movie, Konstantin Khovansky. And both films were shown during the Russian Film Week also. Most of the work that I do has an emphasis on strengthening common cultural bonds. I think it's important to support Russian Film Week, not only to spark an interest in Russian films, which is very important, it can also help to educate the American public about Russian culture and people through these films. And this is especially important to overcome stereotypes that impact both current and future generations. I always say thinking in terms of stereotypes is a danger of our current inclination to form fast judgments. We form these fast judgments today from television, from movie, from media. And one of the dangers of stereotypical thinking, these dangers can only be dealt with through cultural dialogue, education, and person-to-person experiences. One of the things I was going to say, we recently lost a very dear friend of mine, the late Librarian of Congress, Dr. James H. Billington. And one of his quotes that he kept emphasizing to me and to my institute, and I quoted it, is that history is about people. It's about not about abstract theories. It's not about abstract concepts or ways of talking about it, but it's about extending yourself into the lives of others. So I believe that the films showing during Russian Film Week helped our audiences do just that, to extend themselves into the lives of others. Well, our nations have a long and vast shared history. I believe that highlighting the common cultural bonds that our two nations share is an important reminder of how intertwined our countries have been historically. Russian music and dance have influenced our American culture in so many ways. Everything from the Nutcracker Suite that we all play at Christmas time to the 1812 Overture that we play during July 4th. And Russian cinema and theater and literature are taught in our universities, and they've influenced our own development in the arts. And as we were reminded in Sobibor, Russia has historically been our ally in every major war and suffered the loss of almost 30 million people in World War II. So it's important, I believe, to understand that the greatest focus of cultural understanding is people to people, and to see our cultural similarities as well as our differences. So Russian Film Week is a great example of a cultural celebration that provides authentic perspective and a means to highlight these shared personal experiences through film. So I'm very hopeful that by reaching audiences of all ages through culture and the arts, that we can affect the perceptions of each other in a real and lasting way, because real change must come from the heart. And I sincerely believe that the greatest tool for understanding people and reaching their hearts and minds is through their culture. So Russian Film Week is an invaluable tool in that regard.